And we are live. Welcome to another episode of the Uncensored Entrepreneurs. Ready to unlock prosperity in all areas of your life? On today's show, our guest, Bryan Chamberland, will be doing just that. He is the mastermind behind the prosperity movement and will be sharing powerful insights in achieving financial, spiritual, and family well-being, all grounded in biblical principles. So stay tuned as we unplug and unleash prosperity. It's going to be an episode you won't want to miss. We'll see you on the inside.
We are back and now live with Uncensored Entrepreneurs, and I am so excited to talk to my guest today. Our guest.
I am so excited to talk
mine. He's all mine. No, I'm just kidding. So, Mr. Bryan Chamberland, we have known each other for some amount of years. I will not say those years because I will date myself. But we met a long time ago, back in the day when I was bartending, and Bryan was in the music industry, and he knows my husband Ryan as well. And today we're going to talk about the holistic way to look at building prosperity in your life and the order of things, right? You know, Bryan and I had a really great conversation on my podcast last week, and I was like, man, you got to have this conversation, this honest conversation on our show, because I think that so many people forget the priority of things, right? The priority in which we should build business and who comes first and second and third. And a lot of people end up losing their families, losing the things that they hold dear, their values, their belief system, because they're too focused on the end goal. And Bryan shared a really staggering statistic with me that 50% of people get divorced, but 75% of entrepreneurs, if they don't work together, get divorced. And so we want to talk a little bit about how to prioritize some of the most important things in your life so that you can build prosperity as well as a happy life and future. So thank you, Bryan, for being here today. I'm excited to speak with you.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. My gosh, what an honor. This is so much fun already. Robert and Tina and Star, like what a name. Come on, Star.
Right?
Right? She was born to that title. Yes.
Yeah. And Christina, like I'm just so blown away by your evolution and your transformations. And I've witnessed it from, Facebook for over the years, and I've been cheering you on the whole time. And I think that's really important. We've got a culture right now where a lot of people are not so happy about other people's accomplishments. And it really is a testament to what they're living in their lives as well. And so first things first, like while other people are talking today, if you see me closing my eyes, I'm not sleeping. I'm soaking it in. Sometimes
I'm really start using that one from now on. My fiance uses that one too. I'm not sleeping. I'm just soaking it up.
Yeah, I was gonna say
snoring.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Bryan. Just like I remind my 2-year-old, even though you close your eyes, we can still see you. Okay, just
thank you, appreciate it. No, I'm with you 110%. My phone is off to the side. It is off. I'm actually going to shut off my notifications right now to be fully present, be fully with everybody on this call.
Awesome.
And we're here to talk about, prosperity. And I think first and foremost, there is a stigma around that word. A lot of people might understand and know what the prosperity gospel is. And I'm not here to spread the prosperity gospel. I'm here to share about the Greek terminology of prosperity, which is evimeria, evimeria. Almost like Merry Christmas, evimeria, which is to be well. And being well doesn't necessarily mean being happy all the time. I truly believe wholeheartedly that happiness is a happening, but joy is something that you can choose no matter where you are and what's happening in your life. And I'm not on this call today. We're going to talk about the 4 pillars of prosperity, but I'm not on this call today to say that I've got it perfect, that I've got it all figured out, that I'm a 10 in each one of these areas. But these are very, very key areas, and these are very key principles. I would go ahead and say kingdom principles. These are the keys to the kingdom for you to live, on earth as it is in heaven. And a big starting point for us in our mission, vision, values is Galatians 5:22-26, which is the fruit of the Spirit is love, peace, patience, kindness, forbearance, and self-control. And against such things, there is no law. And as entrepreneurs, I think that everybody knows that, when you really get a strong hold on self-control and delayed gratification, that's where the magic is. I think that everybody on this call, you didn't get here because you were, into the position you are today because I'm guessing everybody here is relentless. That's without a shadow of a doubt, but you had to be patient and persistent. That's what mustard faith is. Moving mountains doesn't happen right here, right now, today. That happens with patience and persistence. And so, I'm open to any feedback on what you're catching there, but yeah.
Well, great reminder, right? Because speaking for each of us, plus those that come on live and are listening to the recording later, we tend, especially as an entrepreneur, there's so many of us that want immediate results, right? We get into this because of some passion or something that compels us. Maybe it's even, just someone that we've listened to online that we're trying to, emulate or be like. And so we're like, oh, they are seeing results now and I'm doing all the right things. I seem to be following this process. Where are those results? So they're looking for that immediate gratification, as you stated. And for us, again, speaking of the circle, because most of us have been doing this for 10 plus years, we know that this journey, it's a hero's journey. There's many ups and downs along the way. And each one of these things are lessons, right? So I'm just glad that you really touched base on that, to open up with the fact that, to move mountains like a mustard seed, it takes so much time, right?
Well, it reminds me of trying to remember, I heard a guy talk about this. He's a friend of Ed Milet's. I'm trying to remember. He's maybe his name will come to me again, but he was on his podcast. He was talking about this. There's a special rock. I think it was the Greeks that would they would hammer on this rock, and it's such a special rock that you wouldn't see chips come off of it or anything like that. In order for this thing to break in half, it had to have a number of amounts of pressure and amounts of hits for it to happen. But you don't know whether that was going to happen on hit number 99 or 100 or 110. And I don't know if you guys have seen those funny, what do you call them? Memes? Where there's that, where that there's the guy digging for gems or digging for gold.
Yes.
He's within an inch, and then he runs away, right? And so
he's like, I'm done with this.
Right. And I think that's that's in our culture. Everything is so instant that everybody expects an instant result. And really consistency is king with everything. Consistency is king with your time. And this is the 4 pillars of prosperity. Might as well drop it right here, right now.
Let's do it.
And there's genuinely, we talked, you guys are introed me with these concepts of biblical principles. This is very, very important to me. But time, the Bible says that we are but a vapor. Our days are numbered. Only God knows how many days that we have, and he knows every single hair on our body. He knows every aspect of us, and he created us fearfully and wonderfully made in his vision for his divine purpose. But we only have so much time, and we don't know how much time we have. So that's our most valuable currency, right? We don't know how much time we have. So what are we doing on a daily basis to make the best of our time? The next is your health. And your health is truly your wealth, because if you're not healthy, you don't have as much time. It's a pretty simple concept, right? And the Bible says a lot about actually taking care of the temple of the Holy Spirit. Our body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. Number 3 is your relationships. Well, I'm pretty sure that we all know that the number 1 golden rule is, love thy neighbor, and then love God, right? Love God first and foremost, love your neighbor. And relationally, that's the currency that you are going to remember most on your deathbed. I don't know very many people that are sitting there on their deathbed and all they're thinking about is what they have in the bank account. I mean, I think they're thinking about, what they're, hoping that their family is going to be well taken care of while they're gone and all that kind of stuff. But there's so many people that, maybe billionaires and that are on their deathbed and they'd easily trade that within an instant to be back to health. Right. So, and then of course there's our legacy. What are you leaving behind? And those relationships are really like, I'm a Clemmerite. So Clemmer, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Clemmer Leadership, but they're an amazing organization. It was led by Bryan Clemmer, and he has an entire group of leaders that are instilling the principles of the kingdom principles that he laid behind. And he had I believe a 500-year vision after he was gone, and he literally has an entire crew that are pushing that. He's gone now, and they're pushing that vision. And so it really kind of challenged me. I was like, man, do I have 1,000 year? Can I? So now, like, you may have heard before this concept of this idea of like back engineering from your deathbed or from your funeral, right? But with our team, I'm always pushing and I'm like, okay, well, what about 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years, maybe 500,000 years after you're gone? What was the impact of that? I mean, ultimately, what's most important, I heard somebody say before we were getting on today, Jesus, take the wheel. Jesus is the ultimate. And at the same time, what are we doing to reflect that in a way that he is being glorified after we are gone? What kind of legacy can we leave behind? And that is, primarily through our children. And then, from there, how are our children impacting and what does that look like? Can we actually for a second think of what we want that to look like and what God would want to see in that? And how are we living today to reflect that idea?
Yeah, and I think that people always think that they have more time, right? They think that time is endless, especially in your youth, right? In your youth, as you start to get a little bit older, you start to realize it's not. But in your youth, you look at other people and like, man, they're old. And then all of a sudden you're that age, right? And I think so often we forget about.
What was that age? 30?
You don't want it. Yeah, that age was 30.
It was 30 for me too. Like if you were 30 when I was younger, you were like
you were old. I know. Oh my gosh.
Tina, it's a continuous cycle, right? Because when you're 10 years old, 16 seems like a big deal, and then 21.
But now I'm like 70's not that old, right? Like now I'm like 70's not that old, right? Like we adjust our scales.
70, you're like it's not that old.
It's fine. It's fine, Tina. It's fine.
But to your point, Christina, like bringing that back around, right? The idea is these are the sequence of events, right? And when we think about legacy or we think about preparation for retirement, those used to be things that you did, or people used to think, well, I've got time to prepare for that. And I can't speak for each of you, but I know that I've lost a lot of really good friends over the last few years, and they're not very old, right? We're hearing a lot more about people that are having heart attacks at 30 years old and other things that actually just happen in life. And so preparation is something that has to be like continuous, right? It's a daily thing. It's a commitment. And I'm so glad you're talking about this, Bryan, and expand on that, Christina. When you're talking about like legacy is the fact that, you really should be preparing for that on a daily basis in some way.
Yeah, I think about it all the time. And even like simply as this, right? It's so easy for us to get lost in work. Like for those of us that are entrepreneurs, it's easy for us to get lost in work. That's the easy solution than actually going to take the time and correctly parenting your kids, right? And like I'm just saying, because it's easy to get lost in this versus like taking the time and the care and the energy to raise really great kids, or taking the time to pour into your marriage. There's so many things that can go by the wayside because you get too focused on the goal at hand. And I think, we were even having this conversation. I was having this conversation last night. Ryan and I got a date night last night, and we're talking. I was like, well, how about we, I was looking at this retreat that's happening in Thailand. And he's like, oh my gosh, but like really? No. And his first reaction was no. And I said, okay, that's fine. But I said, don't you want to have these memories with our kids? Like if I'm gone in 5 years, I'm not going to care at all about the business that I built or whatever that is, right? I'm going to care that I had really great memories with my kids, that they remember that we had good times and that we worked hard for those things and that we explored the world together and we made time for each other. And I think that so often that is lost in entrepreneurship, you know, and the things that you bring back, even for example, how many of us actually take the time to say grace before dinner, right? Like to give thanks for our food and gratitude every single day. We tend to skip over those things when life gets busy. But most families don't even eat together anymore. They don't even sit down and eat together, or they're on their devices, right?
Or like this with their phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a reminder, right? It really is. And this isn't, by the way, you know, anything that we're discussing today, it's not a judgment that's being cast on anyone.
No,
We're actually pointing fingers at self, right? Yeah. These are things that we have to continue to hone daily. I know even for myself that when I wake up in the morning, you know, once in a while, I lose track and I grab this phone, right? Maybe I see a bunch of alerts or notifications and I look at it and I think, is this important? Like I remind myself every time I put it down and I'm like, I'm just thankful to be alive. I'm so glad that I'm actually here, you know, on this earth one more day to make a difference, right?
It's so hard too until somebody puts it out there for you. So exactly. Tony has been, you know, new in my life the last year, but he knows how much I work. And he's like, you're always on the phone. And I was like, I need to. But he also knows that, you know, we work 24 hours a day. Like, so Robert, to your point, like that's what I do first thing. I grab this. However, since I'm
training myself to not do that.
Yes, every morning you do our devotions before you touch your phone or, you know, like the first hour or anything like that. So Bryan, I want you to kind of let us know, how did you get into teaching about prosperity and the way you are teaching it to everybody?
That's a really great question. Before we get into that, can I dive into some stats just for a second?
Oh my
yes.
Who likes stats? So like
Christina,
you're mentioning that you know that you're Tina. I just want to just kind of speak in this just for a second. You have somebody in your life that's noticing something. So the 7-year Adventists, they take 1 year, everybody religiously, okay? And I'm not a big guy on religion. I'm big on relationship. On the other side, religion, sometimes you can look at it from a standpoint of, you know, your habits, your consistencies, right? And so these people take 1 day off completely for rest a year. Now, there are other cultures that do this.
Wait, a year?
No, 1 day a week.
Weekly.
1 day a week.
Oh, I was like, wait, only a year?
Yeah, I know, that's all right. I was with you, but yeah, weekly, absolutely.
I'm glad everybody is sharp right here with me. So, like, they take one day off a week throughout, like, and so what that adds for years is 10 extra years onto their life statistically. So these people live 10 years longer than the normal individual, interestingly enough, because of that 1 day of extra focused rest. So an area where you can just unplug, right? So just an encouragement, you know, to actually be able to have that strength and that discipline, because it takes discipline now with all the distractions that we have today, right? So just adding in that one practice and principle in your life can add 10 years to your life.
We have a city here in Southern California, Bryan, not too far from me, that's considered that blue zone where they Seventh-day Adventists, they kind of
Loma Linda, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So not too far from me, and you're absolutely right. They have a longer lifespan. So I love that you shared that point in terms of self-care. And I really wanted to talk to you about the 4 points, the pillars that you dropped for us. I love all of those pillars. And you mentioned something very important, that you're even working on those still yourself. And I feel like it's the same for me. I have so much more work to do. So what are some tips that you can share with us on how we can improve those 4 areas of our lives?
Sure. So we got the what is the tips, and then I think the first initial question was like a how I got here. Exactly. So did we want to capture the how and then move to the what?
Go ahead.
Kind of...
You capture them however you would like, Bryan.
Yeah. So
Robert's constantly trying to reel us in, by the way.
I just want to make sure that I'm addressing I kind of had an agreement there because I asked if we could kind of redirect for a second. And then I always, even with Christina, I said, you're going to have to reel me back in for these 3 points last time we were on our last podcast. And if you guys haven't seen that yet, that was a really amazing interview.
I ended up watching that. Yes.
Yeah, and a really, really, really great time. So basically how I think that video would express a lot of the how I got here. But if I was to give the highest level view is I was lost. I was completely lost. And I'll be honest, like, and be real for a moment. I don't think that I would be here if I didn't, just give myself over to God and let him do what he wanted to do in and through me. But I was lost inside myself. I was over 300 pounds. I was an avid drinker, 2-pack a day smoker. I was into crack, cocaine, every single drug you can possibly think of. I tested everything. I tried everything, over the counter, under the counter, everywhere. You name it. The only thing that I didn't do was put a needle in my arm. I never felt comfortable with that idea, but I was completely lost inside of myself in porn, addiction, you name it, sex, everything. And how I was able to get there, I don't even know how I was that kind of persuasive individual, because I was a sloth, an absolute sloth. Just completely lost inside myself. And one day, as mentioned on that other call, I called my mom for help in terms of I needed groceries. And it was true. I needed groceries, but I wouldn't have needed groceries if I wasn't being so unwise and frivolous and being a sluggard. And if I wasn't lost inside myself, making really poor decisions, I wouldn't have needed the help. And so my mom one day, and some people might feel like this might have been enabling to a certain degree, but it really struck home. Because she said, Bryan, I love you unconditionally, unequivocally, irrevocably. There's nothing that you could possibly say or do to change how much I love you. And if you're in the hospital, I can't help you. If you're in jail, I can't help you. If you're dead, I cannot help you. And if the well runs out, if I run out of money, I can't help you. And so, man, I'm starting to feel this deep conviction. And I'm literally looking at myself in the mirror. And I'm crying out to God. And, I didn't hear Morgan Freeman or anything like that, but I had this conviction and prompting that, I had 500 phone numbers in my phone. Not bad people. I don't ever like to point at bad people. It's principalities. It's not people. It's principalities. So people making really poor choices. And so God said, delete all those phone numbers, get a new phone number, no calls going out, none coming in. And start over, walk into the gym the next day. I was prompted to walk into the gym for some reason. It was just go do that. It was like the new thing. Cause I was able to quit everything cold turkey because I shifted. Right. And I didn't go through a 10-step or 12-step program. And I never believed in this idea of I'm going to be I'm an addict in front of people, because I know God doesn't call you that. God would never call you that. And I am is something that's the most powerful thing you could ever say, because anything you put after it becomes true, right? But I'm a true believer that if we can hone in on what God says about us, he'll turn that mess into a message, right? And so not to talk poorly about any 12-step programs or anything like that, but I highly encourage people to hone in on the truth of who God says you are, because if you identify with something that pours on guilt, you're going to live in that guilt, and you're going to keep manifesting that in some way, shape, or form, right? And so what does God say about me? God says that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, unique in his vision for a divine. God says that he loves me. God says that, I'm powerful, and in and through him, I can achieve anything in and through Jesus Christ, right? And so that power is ultimately, he's the ultimate power, and that resides in me. So the more that I really honed in on that, the more that he cleaned out my life, and I was able to, lose over 100 pounds in 6 months. I was featured in a magazine. I studied kinetics and nutrition, became a head trainer at one of Edmonton's largest gyms. And, from there, things just kind of shifted, and I'm in a constant shift right now, and I think we all are. Everybody on this call, everybody listening, you are where you are, and you have the blessing of today, and you have the blessing of you have opportunities are around you, and you have, like, when we talk about opportunities, I believe that really everybody thinks that it's about resources, but ultimately it's about resourcefulness with what you have. And you truly have everything you could possibly need sitting right in front of you to make the shift that God wants you to make in your life right here, right now. And so that's how I kind of got into this, was just getting to a place of surrender. And I truly believe that surrender is one of the most strength-filled things that you can possibly do. A lot of the world looks at surrender as if it's a really, negative or a weak thing. But when it's in the context of surrendering to the one who created you, that is the most powerful thing you could ever do. So I'm in a constant state of doing that, because I'm not going to say that I always have that figured out either, because sometimes I'm a bit of a bull and I push a little too much and then realize, I gotta let go and let God. But then there's that patience and persistence thing, where is God really want me to do this? And if that's the case, then I better push through and finish well, make a commitment and finish well. So the question was how. I think that is a nice high level view of the how. And then what are some key ideas of things that we can all do? First things first, assess, address, and take action on your scenario right here, right now. Understand, like, the design of, look at everything around you, like, look at the world around you. Place your eyes on everything around you. Everything around you doesn't belong to you. You can't take it with you where you're going. So assess and understand that there's nothing that I can place my eyes on that I can take with me into where I'm going next. And then also assess the fact that would we all agree on this call that there's good and evil in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We all agree. Okay. And there is a king of each one of those. Okay. There's a king of each one of those. There's a king of darkness. And then there's a king of light, kingdom, love, and light. Okay. Someone say, God, there's Jesus Christ. That is the King, our Lord and Savior. I think that everybody on this call agrees and understands that. So there's a design. There was a fall in the garden, Adam and Eve. That's the reality of it. And then from there was a downfall, that dirty snake. What did that dirty snake do? He confused Adam and Eve. They made a mistake. And here we are. We're living in sin. And we all come into the world as sinners. Does everybody on this call, like, do you guys know the key to heaven? You know how to get to heaven right here, right now?
The key as in acknowledgement, you mean, or believing?
Yeah, like, how do you get to heaven?
Accept Jesus into your heart.
Yeah, I'd say
like, I'm like, what is this? What you mean? I don't know what you're getting at.
Okay, if we're talking to somebody who's not there yet, who
Okay.
like we all agree that you accept Jesus into your life, but if we're not there yet, my question then is like, okay, I don't know. I think all you have to do is be good. Well, then the next question is, okay, you just got to be good. Have you ever lied before?
Confess your sins.
I was gonna say, just be good is such a broad,
very general
growth, right? Because we all are.
What is good? What is good enough, or like good, like in Jesus' eyes?
So then the question is, have you ever lied before? And most people are going to tell you, like, yeah, I lied. Okay. Have you ever stolen before? And then, okay, if the answer is, well, no. Well, how do I know? You just told me you lied. You know? I think we're getting to the point now that we all fall short of the glory of God. And that's the reality of the downfall. And now the deliverance is, as you said, the word, which is Jesus. And then guess what? You get to have a choice. There's good and evil in the world. We all agree in that. Again, there's a king. Desire in the Latin, D of the sire, father, right? There's a father of both of those. Which one do you want? Do you want the dark or do you want the love and the light? So you get to choose. You get to decide. You get to make a choice in your life on which one you get to choose. Now, with that being said, I chose Jesus Christ. And in the Bible, it doesn't promise you that you're going to have prosperity in the sense that because I chose Jesus, I'm going to have all this money in the world. And of course, we're going to talk about money today, I hope, because the Bible talks more about money than it does about marriage, even though marriage is the most important covenant you're ever going to make. It actually does talk a lot more about money. But here's the other thing that's a promise in the Bible is that we're going to have many trials. You can't go through life without trials. You're going to have hardship. This is why I say that, happiness is happening, but joy is something that you get to choose. Guaranteed you're going to go through trials. Hey, the disciples, all of them died a really ridiculous, some of them got filleted. Some of them were crucified upside down, right? But yet they went out with joy. That's a hard thought, right? And when you hear things like Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans that I have for you, plans to prosper you and not harm you. Do you know the context of what was going on back then? Anybody know what a Roman candle is? They used to put people up on stakes and light them on fire. That was what they were doing.
Fire. Yeah, that's right.
Now Jeremiah is saying, for I, hey, have hope and joy. I know the plans to prosper you while you're up there on the stake and you're being thrown up. And now put that into context. Does God want you to have a nice Rolex watch? Does he want you to have a Lambo and to have that? Do you know what I mean? Is that what he truly wants for you? I mean, I'm not saying those are bad things. If you're earning that and that's what you're doing, that's wonderful. That's great. What's the impact that you're making in your life on earth right here? How are you impacting other people? What does that look like? Right? We make it all about me, iPhone, me phone, my, me, my. But how are you serving? True purpose and fulfillment comes from serving other people, enriching other people's lives. So
absolutely. Absolutely. I'm pretty sure that everyone tuning in today did not know that they were going to be going to church. This is I shouldn't even say church in that sense. This is worship, right? Because when you start thinking about these things, it's very interesting, Bryan. And I love that you've taken, this impact, something that's happened to you on a very personal level. You're being very transparent and vulnerable with your story. So thank you. What an amazing testimony. You're also being able to relay that to just, every single person that you come in contact with, let alone the entrepreneur, right? So when we talk about like that kind of overall, it's absolutely huge, because when you think of your business and you understand keeping the end in mind, what is the true purpose? What is the real impact here at the end of the day? And I'm so glad you mentioned Lamborghini, because I'm always joking with each one of my co-hosts in this Lambo movement, right? I mean, if you've worked really hard and you've earned those things, that's one thing. But most people, they try to achieve that as a status without real purpose or impact on the other end, other than continuously uplifting their status and making sure that they make those monthly payments, right? So I'm just glad that you're addressing this and
renting it to make a post to sell people on their product.
Yes.
Right? That's a real thing that's happening right now. Like right now with Prosperity Movement, we're really honing in on FTC compliance, next level.
Good.
This is such an important thing that we see so many people online right now that are living a lie of a lifestyle, just to get people to purchase that product and all that kind of stuff. And ultimately for us, our mission, vision, and values, you can check it out on the Meet Us link. And I've seen it come up on screen a few times, or team, all that kind of stuff. You learn about the mission, vision, values there, but ultimately we're here to help families drive more impact and income so they can do more of the things they love with the people they love most, to ultimately to develop new skill sets so we can press families together. And as Christina had mentioned earlier, is the fact that we're looking at the 50% divorce rates, the 75 for the entrepreneurs that aren't working together, the stigma surrounding, mental health and addiction. 9 out of 10 people with that are getting divorced. And then 50% of the Western world are dealing with mental health and addiction. Hello.
Absolutely. And I'm just glad you brought that up. I work with the veteran community as well, and obviously other just entrepreneurs. And there is a major stigma around just mental health as a whole, right? Most of us, especially men, I'm not saying, that doesn't include women, because it does. It includes all of us. But, there's many of us that were raised to be strong, to not show emotion. And that in itself is kind of one of the the leading roots, if you will, into this mental health stigma where I can't talk about it. If I talk about mental health, then it's weakness. It's considered to be weakness in my mindset. And but I'm so glad it's becoming much more aware, and we're talking about it more. There's amazing people that are coming out and sharing testimonies just like you have, right? I mean, your testimony, Bryan, it really relates to what many people are going through. And addiction doesn't always have to be, this big classified, a drug addiction or something. It can be any little thing.
You can be addicted to this thing. You can be addicted to the cookies. You're right. Like it's addiction is in so many different things. You can be addicted to a person, right? There's such a thing as like another thing we're starting to educate people on through some of our resources as we're bringing more families in, and we're pressing families together across the nations is learning about attachment styles, learning about trauma bonding, learning about all these things, and like what are some of the biggest, like when we look at some of the challenges that we're like in divorce, it really comes down to two major things. I mean, I think number one is communication. And then the other one is money, right? And so and when you add miscommunication surrounding money, oh man, it just gets even worse. And so these are the things that how can we help people increase their communication skills? And you know what? Sales is a beautiful place to really hone in on that. And, I always ask people, do you believe that, we're all in sales? And, if anybody ever tells me no, then I'll ask them questions like, well, have you ever asked somebody out on a date? Wait a minute. Are you
exactly?
You have kids, we're in a constant exchange of time, money, and energy. Like that's always where we're exchanging. And so influence is really, really important to learn. It's a skill set. And then, now we're being conditioned with this idea that you are, you're either an extrovert or you're an introvert or you're a mix of the two, and this and that. And remember, I am is the most important thing we can ever say, because anything we put after it becomes true. Because when I was a closet crack smoker, I was an introvert, right? It's the reality. But is that who I am? Is that who God says we are? Because what's God's design for us? We are the hands and feet of God. We're supposed to go out and connect, and we're supposed to work together. God is a God of unity. Right. And so these are do you really want to tell yourself that you're an introvert? Do you really want to tell yourself that you are what's another one, a processor? Do you want to tell yourself that? I mean, I know this, don't push a processor, because if you push a processor, but is that really what you're defined by? Because do you want your eyes to see and your ears to hear and discern, or do you want God's eyes to see and God's ears and God's words? I would prefer the latter. Right. Yeah. And so and how do you get there? I mean, you soak in the truth, you hone in on the truth, and pick up your Bible. If you want to learn how to read it, I'm happy to show you some ideas, and not just ideas, but methods to get through it in a manner that is going to help you really hone in on who you are. And I've heard Simon Sinek says this a lot of times, start with why. I think that's maybe, I think that you got to be careful with that, because your why can be jaded if it's rooted in something that's the truth. If it's rooted in something that's not the truth, then you're not truthfully moving forward in a proper why. So what should the why? Oh, start with who. Start with who you are and what God wants for you, the desires of your heart. He has the desires of your heart. Hone in on that, and then the what and the why and the how and all of those things will become more clear. So to Simon Sinek, I love you, bro. But we got to start somewhere a little bit more important.
But I see where you're going with that, right? Because the why could be the Lamborghini, right? I mean, quite honestly, and many of us are kind of driven for the wrong purpose. I also I've always said, start with who, right? Who, kind of who am I? And I do this in personal branding. And the next thing is, who else, right? Like, what's the impact now that I've figured out who I am? Service. What's the impact that I can have on others? Absolutely.
Service. And then here's a fun one that I really love, which is the bigger the problem, the bigger the payoff, the bigger the solution, the bigger the salary.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so now we're rooted in service. Like, how can I make this part of your life? And I would go ahead and say that, pain, God has a way of taking your pain and turning it into a purpose. And so what are some of the biggest things that break your heart? What are some of the biggest things that hurt you to your core? And how do you fill that gap for others? Because that's a key and a pathway to healing for other people and for yourself. Because man, what a sense of significance.
It's so interesting that this is coming up. I saw a post yesterday and I took a picture of it because people work for money and they tend to, I want a bigger house, or I want another house, or I want to travel, or I want, these are all the things that we want. And I saw this picture of Bon Jovi working in one of his restaurants. He's got a chain of restaurants called Soul Kitchen. And he created those restaurants for the homeless, and they get to eat forever there for free. And that's what he's doing. His net worth, by the way, is $410 million. And that's the good he's doing in the world. You look at Tony Robbins, who've fed 1 billion children, right? Like, what are you going to do with all this money when you make it? And if you don't have the vision of that, you're never going to be called to do more and become more in the process. And that's what I really love about what you do, Bryan. It was funny because I was talking to this woman this morning, and she was giving me all these reasons, or asking me all these things about why, well, what about this? What about this? And I said, if you look for all of the ways it isn't going to work, you will find them. But if you look for all the ways that it will work, you will progress forward. And I said, I'm not here to convince you that this is what you need to do. Like, you need to figure that out on your own and make the decision to do so. But what I love is what you're doing is creating this prosperity movement that is a holistic view of life and health and business and money. Like, let's talk about money, because most people avoid that conversation, especially right now, right? We're seeing people post their income online a lot. And I understand why. Like, let me just put that out there. I understand why people are posting their income, because everyone is so damn skeptical, because people were posting their income and they're like, you're not making that, right? Like, you're false advertising, right? But when transparency, that transparency is important. So I understand why people are doing it. I understand celebration. I understand all those things. But when you come from a place of service, let me tell you, the people that are truly wealthy out there, like Bon Jovi, who is feeding the homeless, they don't drive Lambos. They don't dress in all designer clothes. They don't talk about money, because they're too damn busy helping people do more in life and do more in business. Right. So can you talk a little bit about what you're doing with Prosperity Movement and how you're helping people with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, ultimately, like, where it came for us is, like, we started in 2019 as a marketing ad agency. Zach and I got into it, and I at the time went from back against the wall, facing bankruptcy, moving across the country, and with my mother-in-law and my wife and my firstborn child, and that was a very humbling experience. Because as a man, you want to provide your wife with security, safety. You want to provide her with a roof. You want to provide those things, right? And so, that's why the grace of Jesus is so important too sometimes, because sometimes, guys, like, some real things will happen in your life, and that's why communication is king and connection is king, because, I don't think that every single woman on the face of the earth just cares about money. She does care about security, and that I think that dives deeper into emotional security and so many other aspects of it, right? So, being a really incredible listener is a big component of that. And I wish that I would have learned a lot of that a lot earlier, but hey, God is sovereign. So one day at a time. But I'm Zach while I'm in this scenario, and he was a $10,000 a month coach at the time. And I couldn't rub two nickels together. The bank wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole. I had to get really creative to work with him. I was settled on a 4-month focus with him. And on my first session with him, he basically said, "Oh, dude, you do all the things I don't do. I do all the things you don't do. We should go into business." I'm like, "Thank God, because I want to keep paying you." He's like, "I tell you what, I'm not going to pay you back, but let's go into business. You do your thing, I'll do mine, and you collect the money until you've paid back yourself from what you paid me, and then we'll incorporate the company." And I was like, "Oh, sweet. Okay." So we go to work, and high level, month and a half, pay myself back. It was huge. It was so exciting. And, within the first little bit, we had a few really amazing clients hit our desk. Like, we had a 5-time New York Times bestselling author, had been featured on Oprah a few times, I think for every book. And then we had Stanley Cup champion, Olympic gold medalist Theo Fleury hit our desk. You know, Wayne Gretzky handpicked him for Team Canada. And, high level, I ended up, you know, accepting Theo as a client. It was for mental health campaign stuff. So I know quite a bit about that. So we honed in on that with him. And I let go of the 5-time New York Times bestselling author who had been featured on Oprah. And Zach was like, what? Like, why? And I was like, well, high level, they didn't meet the mission, vision, values. And ultimately, like, the communication was so off. And I just feel like we would have been a slave to that. And I couldn't picture myself introducing them to my family at a barbecue. And therefore, no, I'm going to let that go. And he's like, you can do that? I was like, yeah. He's like, I think this is so like mind-boggling to him, because he was working with Joel Bauer at the time. And for those that, you know, aren't aware, they say he's the most famous guy who nobody knows, because he's the mentor of mentors. He's mentored Tony Robbins, Russell Brunson, and a lot of the top people in their field, and marketing, and a lot of different other areas in terms of and that kind of stuff. He's a monster. So, you know, they had taken the company from, you know, basically nothing to just scraping 7 figures in 14 months. And he's talking about all of a sudden selling shares to come into business with me full time. And I'm like, what? Like, you're crazy. Come on, bro. You're nuts. Like, that's don't do it. But he did. And then, you know, we started helping companies all over, you know, North America, and even in Europe. We started running ads and for other companies, 3x, 5x, and even 10xing their revenue online, working with all kinds of, like, from real estate to solar panel, like all kinds of different things across the board, insurance, you name it. And we were helping a lot of these businesses. Like, we probably helped hundreds and thousands of businesses just by giving them resources through systems, tools, and software. We have what you call the Prosperity Portal, and we just give that away complimentary. Saves companies like up to, you know, $17,000 or so a year on systems, tools, and software. If you look at all of the things of bundling them together, if you were to get them all individually. So we were starting there, and then, you know, we implemented what we call a 3-bucket system: do it yourself, do it with you, do it for you. And we just gave huge to those that wanted to do it themselves and save money. And we attracted the heck out of the guys that didn't want to have anything to do with it and just save time. So that's how we served and honed in on that, and did really well. And then all of a sudden we met a trading monster out of Edmonton, Alberta, an 8-figure earner. And it just completely, like, we were like, okay, this is going to be an avenue that is really going to help people and simplify a lot of this. So let's move into trading. And then we met a guy named James Leone. And this is a guy who a couple decades ago placed his first trade, lucked out. I won't put the number of what he did on his first trade that he lucked out with, but basically he dedicated himself for a year, and he bought out his boss's company and then built a 3.5 million pound facility. He lives out of Ireland in his first year trading. There's an article on him, and he's a world-renowned master trader. And so locked arms with him through a simple podcast interview. I think we interviewed him twice, and then it turned into a partnership. And we just kind of blew it up in there. And we're still consider ourselves, you know, a baby, but we're averaging about 35 bookings a day, 1,400 a month, just under 17,000 a year. And our team is growing.
Your automation is dialed in, my friend. It's so good. I'm like, keep getting texts every day. I'm like, yes, I want prosperity. Yes, I want to make more money. Yes, I want, right? Every day, right?
We just actually had to increase because our mailing list is getting ridiculous. And so I don't know if you're aware of this, but there are guidelines with that too. So you have to increase certain things as your emailing list grows. I don't know how those large, you know, multi-billion and trillion-dollar companies do it, but we're sitting here like, wow, like we're constantly learning and earning, and constantly learning and earning, and
evolving.
We're seeing and evolving, a constant evolution. I always tell people that, and we're a direct reflection of our community. Like, we are constantly listening. We take feedback. So when our community gives us feedback on areas, I always tell people we're the best solutionaries in the world. It's not even a word in the dictionary yet. But the deal is this: if you see a problem or an area for improvement, point it out, but also bring a solution. And when you do that, and within a week or two, our team implements. So it's a lot of fun.
I love that. And it's, I'm glad that you've actually, you know, told us kind of this timeline where you've had to pivot multiple times? Because we talk about that a lot on this show and with even our own clients, that many times your business continues to evolve. It evolves due to just technology and systems and trends and all kinds of things, right? It's the other reason why, and maybe you can touch base in regards to this, since you talked about your personal testimony and then your migration into business. I always talk about like the speed of getting your product, your testimony, and your brand to market, because, you know, even like for myself, a lot of us have this kind of, you know, instilled in us to be this perfectionist. And we know that, and many times your content can already be outdated by the time you get it to market if you wait too long, right? So it's kind of like imperfect action is better than no action at all. Would you like to address that at all? Since you've done some of these launches, what advice would you give people regarding that?
Yeah, again, like we shouldn't be honing in for perfection. It should always be a constant, like, progress-filled motivation, inspiration. I even say inspiration. Motivation is something, but inspiration is the progress, and you'll get a good sense of purpose in the progress, right? So keep moving with the progress, and yeah, take imperfect action, like you said. And ultimately, you should always be looking for three things in your marketing and sales, and don't overcomplicate it. You do want a short form copy focus, hooks, but then also long form, so that you can keep people reeled in and really honing in on the information. Because the longer captivated you have somebody, the more chances that they're going to figure out whether or not they like you, right? And so give them plenty of opportunity to do that. Create creative ways of doing that. For us, we have entry courses we give away completely complimentary. And, you know, people used to do webinars. Now we do courses and that kind of stuff. But marketing and sales is super simple. It's three simple steps that they marry. And number one, it's creating a clear message that converts. So you need to have a clear, captivating message for your audience, knowing your audience. And that means don't start with why questions. Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Because that's such a poor place to start. You got to come from a place of, because when you're with your spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend, let me ask you this. If you have to ask them questions to figure out how they're feeling, is it more connection? Or when you truly know how they're feeling, is it a deeper connection when you can empathize and really dive in deeper? And so come from a place of empathy with your clarity of message, and then position a proper offer that, compels your audience and gets them to take action. And then the number one, most important one is to be able to deliver well, deliver strong. The delivery is over delivery on both experience and expectation. If you can over deliver on both experience and expectation, it doesn't matter what you're going to do. You're going to win over and over and over again. And so is your community. And the more your community is winning, the more everybody gets to win.
Ooh. That's a strong finish. I mean, thank you so much, Bryan. We could probably talk for the next 5 hours if we had that. And maybe we will set that up someday, right? We'll do a mastermind with you, because you've got a wealth of knowledge, and I'm all about kingdom leadership. So I really appreciate the way that you're bringing this information and content to us.
Sure.
The other thing that I just would like to say is that for those, that are watching live, that have been following us on multiple channels, or even those that kind of come back around and you're watching the recording, you can reach out to us directly if you'd like some more information about this. You can reach out to Bryan directly, and you can find him at prosperitymovement.online. And as the /team, is that just kind of direct them to some content quicker?
Yeah, it's going to show you about our mission, vision, values, and it'll show you a little bit of a bio of all the people that are, the core leaders at this time. We're going to be adding in more, I'm sure, as time goes by. You can just go to prosperitymovement.online. There's a little chat bubble at the bottom, and just put in subject gift, put in your information. We'll send you a complimentary blueprint and some complimentary stuff for you to kind of do your due diligence and set yourself up for success.
I love that you lead with that. I love that you lead with your values. I think that is so important. Most people are leading with a pitch, and you're leading with your values. We want to work with people that are like us. And I think that's brilliant.
Well, because the values right at the end of the day are essentially what's going to solve the pain points in people's lives. And that's really what we're here to do. We're not here to sell as much as solving a problem that somebody has.
Serve and solve, 100%.
Serve and solve. That's it. That's the secret. You just gave it away, Bryan. You're supposed to wait till people call us later. That's all we have to tell them. Absolutely. So thank you so much. We're going to wrap up today's episode. And again, connect directly to Bryan, connect with us, and we'll have you on the show again and do a lot more collaboration. I'm all about collaboration. We're all about collaboration. And that's the best way that we can actually continue to serve and create a bigger impact in this world. Don't forget to follow, like, and share on Facebook.com/uncensored entrepreneurs and across other social channels. You can find us Uncensored Entrepreneurs. We appreciate each and every one of you. Next week, we'll probably have a recorded session, one of our old episodes or some other things that are coming back on. We won't be live. I will be on a cruise ship celebrating my daughter, dancing and performing on the cruise ship.
Amazing.
Pretty awesome. An amazing opportunity for my family and I.
It's a great memory she's gonna have from that.
And such a proud dad moment, right?
Well, big time. I will share all 1,000 pictures with you when I return.
I bet.
Thank you all. Thanks, Bryan. And we will catch you on another episode. Thursdays, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you again.
Awesome.